Recording's in progress. I'm going to make you host and I'm out of here.
All right. Thank you, Andrew, very much. And we have started our week 112 of the IGU Summit today. So I am now starting the proceedings. As always, we do start these events by acknowledging those who came before us on this land. So I do say a land acknowledgement. So we begin today by acknowledging that we walk upon the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples. We recognize their history, spirituality, culture, and stewardship of the land. We're grateful to all Indigenous groups for their commitment to protect the land and its resources. We're committed to reconciliation, partnership, and enhanced understanding. We acknowledge the land that I am residing and visiting here in Taoyuan, Taiwan, is the traditional territory of many nations, including Austronesian Indigenous peoples who have lived on this island for over 8,000 years. The East Formosan tribes of the Atayal peoples of central and northern Taiwan, also known as the Tayal or the Tayan, meaning human or man, and where Taoyuan City in this modern age contains 16 different Aboriginal groups whose population exceeds 70,000, making Taoyuan the most populated city for Indigenous peoples on the western part of the island. We also acknowledge that the Indigenous Culture Center of Taoyuan City, first established in May 2004, has become a gathering point for the Indigenous peoples, as well as being listed as one of Taoyuan City's story houses, and whose totem poles on Rainbow Avenue express the Indigenous spirit with beautiful lines, and where the colors on the base of each totem pole derive from the costumes of the different tribes, integrating with the unique landscapes of Taiwan to symbolize the unity of all ethnic peoples. We'd like to thank the Indigenous peoples of these lands, including the Atayal, for sharing this land with us. In our role as settlers and visitors and displaced people on this land, we share the responsibility of challenging and disrupting colonial systems that enact violence upon the land and stand in solidarity with Indigenous peoples. We also acknowledge and recognize all of the world's Indigenous peoples as stewards of Mother Earth. So again, we can now start our regular programming. So I would like to say this again to all our friends in Africa, or Al-Kibulan, Asante Sana, or thank you very, very much in Swahili. We have one guest today, Mate Toepare, with us. So thank you for joining us today for this IGU Summit event. I would also like to say Sawubona, which means I see you, I see myself in you, I see your hopes, your dreams, and your struggles. I see your ancestors as well, because interconnectedness does not end with two people who are greeting each other. It extends to include the ancestors. All beings and Mother Nature are interconnected. There is no sense of being separate. I see myself in all beings, and therefore, if I harm other beings or Mother Nature, it translates into harming myself. So today is Thursday, July 27th, 2023. This is week 112 of our IGU Summit series. There are so many headlines around the world these days that are pointing at one thing: climate chaos is coming. Earth is now more than 1.1 degrees warmer than before the Industrial Revolution. As temperatures climb, the risk of extreme weather rises too. Humans are conducting an unprecedented experiment on the entire planet, and no one is sure how bad things will get. But as our friends at Project Drawdown noted just today, there is hope, because most of the solutions we need to stop climate change and avoid the worst case scenarios are already here, along with everything we need to adapt to the warming. I'll be putting into the chat a set of 3 articles about Antarctic sea ice extreme heat waves, and the body's ability to adapt, and all of the indicators that we are in uncharted territory. I'm also putting a link so that people can join the next monthly free Drawdown Ignite webinar series with Kate Marvel, the senior climate scientist at Project Drawdown. The event takes place in about a month on Wednesday, August 23rd. So just give me 1 second here so I can open the chat window. I would like to share these links for today's IGU Summit. And I will be putting these links into a PDF document of this presentation up to today. That PDF document will be shared with our members so they will have all this information at their fingertips if they need. And so with that, I would just like to say that UnityNet International is moving forward to promote these solutions and to as well bring awareness about them and eventually to be teaching those solutions to those in our network where they will be the best prepared for the coming changes. You can see there's quite a bit of information in the chat today. As well, I wanted to mention our Global Unity Network or UnityNet events like this one are intended to facilitate regenerative globalization by helping to facilitate the coming together of all of the local, regional, national, and international partners required for creating the global multi-stakeholder partnerships, our INAB collaborative empowerment networks that help to empower our local regenerative development solution providers, the FFHE, in all of our local communities worldwide. What is our goal? We're assisting in the global transition to a responsible, localized, productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind as we approach the end of the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, that go from 2015 to 2030. Now, getting on with the opening. Today is not a special day in the UN calendar, but one important event to note just this past weekend was the start of the WIDA-Fest, the Windsor International Diaspora African Festival, which you can find again, some information in the chat. So this is one of the campaigns that we are running with our partners at the Greater Unity Pandemic team. You can register to attend if you happen to be in Windsor, Ontario. So coming up this Sunday, July 30th as well, is International Day of Friendship on July 30th, of course. So International Day of Friendship was proclaimed in 2011 by the UN General Assembly with the idea that friendship between peoples, countries, cultures, and individuals can inspire peace efforts and build bridges between communities. The International Day of Friendship is an initiative that follows on the proposal made by UNESCO, defining cultural peace as a set of values, attitudes, and behaviors that reject violence and endeavor to prevent conflicts by addressing their root causes with a view to solving problems. It was then adopted by the UN General Assembly in 1997. Again, you can find that information in the chat. On the same day, July 30th, is World Day Against Trafficking in Persons, which has the 2023 theme, Reach Every Victim of Trafficking and Leave No One Behind, with the hashtag End Human Trafficking. Again, there is additional information and links in the chat, along with the related link to the UNODC in their global report on trafficking in persons, which was apparently published this year. Not quite as important as the other two events, but something just a bit fun. Today, being July 27th, is also National Crème Brûlée Day, as well as National Scotch Day. And because the Scottish people are so proud of their history and accomplishments, it's also Bagpipe Appreciation Day. Again, you'll find these quirky little events and some links about them in the chat, just for those who may wish to learn a little bit more about the local celebrations in places like Scotland, which are also in some cases celebrated in countries like the United States. As you can see, there is quite a bit of information. It's not entirely relevant to the discussions we're having, but trying to keep it a little bit light. Unfortunately, our guest speaker who was originally scheduled for today, Jeffrey from UnityNet Kenya, will not be able to give a presentation today. Jeffrey is with the local organization, the Clean and Green Earthlings Barut Nakuru Initiative in Kenya. And although this was originally scheduled weeks ago, Jeffrey messaged me yesterday on WhatsApp with a very brief message. He wrote, "We have a bit of tension. Our country movements from place is unsafe. Will not possible to do a presentation." So apparently there is political violence right now in Kenya, and I did verify that.
Yeah,
It's from
no.
Tuesday and yesterday as well.
Well, that's
Just
been going
part of the reason why the
Lloyd?
theme for today. Yes.
That's been going on all week as a result of a rising of the taxes, something that the president promised wasn't going to happen. But instead he has, and it's not a small rise, it's a significant one.
Yes, yes.
So, and they're taking a look at a few other things that he's bringing in, like the selling of a large portion of native forest.
No, I did read a little bit about.
Yeah, and of course
what's going
that,
on.
well, it's devastating because Kenya is one of the countries that suffers the most when it comes to floods versus droughts, simply because of the waterways it has. And I'm not saying other countries don't suffer, they definitely do. But with all of this, people are going on saying that the government doesn't care. And they're trying to get them to.
Yeah, yeah. So, which is, as I said, why today, following my opening presentation, our discussions will be all about regenerative living, but acknowledging that the very first criteria for achieving the outcomes that we seek are those that will prevent any more solid progress. The first criteria being livelihood security, and the second, and very much related criteria, being peace in our local communities and countries. So we'll also discuss an idea that came up last month following an AHIABGA Clubhouse meeting, and that is creating a UnityNet Music for Peace network. Thus, as I wrote in the Facebook marketing blurb today, this week's discussion will be about regenerative living, learning, and lifestyles, the post-fossil carbon solutions to so many issues in society and the biosphere, because UnityNet is seeking to leverage partnerships with solution providers to ensure the transition to a post-2030 responsible, localized, productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that ensures livelihood security and peace for all humans and all our relations globally, leaving no one behind. But where our first focus is helping local people to engage with each other in dialogue rather than violence, and where the infrastructure that we're promoting to start this process are the very simple symbols of a peaceful society. Things like peace poles and peace gardens and trees of peace and reconciliation, which can serve as reminders that we must always seek the path of dialogue for peace. And where I also use the hashtag in my marketing this morning, hashtag start now. In the chat, I will put a few links as well to some of the most relevant peace networks of our UnityNet network of networks. Starting with, of course, the Regenerative Living, Learning, and Lifestyle Network. But also, we have the UnityNet Youth Peace Gardens Network, which is the campaign that we are now promoting. Those who then transitioned into the UnityNet Watershed Peace Gardens campaign to promote those networks of Unity Peace Centers as well that we wish to establish in local communities. And then, of course, on the side of dialogue between peoples of the world, we have our Tea Diplomacy Initiative as well. What I would also like to say about these UnityNet and AHIABGA IGU Summit events is this. We want to be sure that our UnityNet members are getting good publicity and visibility globally so that people from all around the world will know all about the good work that you are doing in your own local community. This is important because it will give you credibility when it comes time to apply for funding for your own local projects and programs, whether the funding you apply for comes from our UnityNet Finance Network members or from another funding source. Of course, UnityNet International has some partners who are working on establishing the infrastructure for regenerative financing, also known as REFI. But this may take some time before we'll be able to finance your own local projects. But bear with us, it is coming. So again, and in the chat, you'll find a little bit of additional information about our own action program, financing for global regenerative projects, the UnityNet Partnerships for Finance Networks, which are done through the UnityNet GP4RD REFI network, as well as the UnityNet Finance, Regenerative Finance Network, which we have established recently, earlier this year, with our goal being to assist all financial institutions and organizations, including ethical and cooperative banking, credit union, and digital trust-based financial service providers, to tap into the many opportunities provided by the members of our global Unity network to empower the local FFHE and allow them to access regenerative finance through their own local INAB collaborative community partnership ecosystems that ensures transparency, accountability, and integrity at all levels and across all sectors of society, amongst governments, business, civil society, academic, and all other sectors of the HEPTA matrix partnerships, which we want to establish at the local, watershed, and bioregional levels. We are only to invite the financial organizations who have a long-term vision and wish to help the world to demonstrate and achieve a post-2030 localized, responsible, productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. For this session as well, one thing I want to mention again this week to try to make sure that everyone understands what we're doing. Our purpose is to help you establish partnerships and empowerment networks so your community is investment ready. Our work is not for charitable giving. We focus on productive regenerative investments, supporting people and planet holistically. The team at UnityNet International is trying to find ways to facilitate and create pathways for investors and investment funds to go into, and not just the regenerative projects, but also the local humanitarian enterprises that are built and run by our FFHE members, rather than always just looking at the things we're doing in the local communities as if they were charities only, and that they can never make a quote-unquote profit. Because if these activities we do and the organizations we create are looked at through the lens of holistic development and ESG investments, These community-based organizations are most definitely worth investing in. We need to change in the mindset. Instead of continuing to ask for donations to help us poor people, we need to start marketing ourselves and our projects, including the nonprofits, as community-based enterprises that are also excellent investments to be made for the future of sustainable and regenerative development. And I give the example where the marketing goes something like this. What we are building here, all of our social structures, these are investments into people and will ensure economic growth can continue to take place in all of our local communities of UnityNet into the foreseeable future. We do this because we are also ensuring the health and well-being of people and planet in our own local watersheds and bioregions, which is fundamental to the health of our economic systems. Because we know that by taking this approach as an essential starting point, we can ensure that we will get even better local economic conditions in the future and can begin to create communities that will help to attract additional investments into our own local people and infrastructure and networks and watersheds and bioregions, including in places like rural Africa and Asia and other places around the world. The important thing to note is we, humanity, collectively goes through this transition is that, as Emperor Julian has noted, great innovations never come from above. They invariably come from below, from the much derided silent folk of the land, who are less infected with academic prejudices than great celebrities are wont to be. And where the question was asked recently, what will move people as things get more broadly terrible, as changes in climate and loss of biodiversity and lack of or expense of energy collide with the notions of the need for a growing economy? In answering himself, Douglas Carmichael from Garden World noted, I'm convinced that only larger questions in a mythic, not scientific rationalism, are capable of moving populations and the actions necessary to engage with what is emerging as a bitter battle with climate. He noted as well that if we read together Joseph Tainter's Collapse of Complex Societies and Toynbee's study of history, of the psychological and political collapses of many of them, we'll actually be able to engage and not leave the scene as truants, nor wax promiscuous by aligning with one hope after another, such as can be seen right now with the AI craze. These are Toynbee's categories that describe many in this time. So again, we will find those references in chat for those who may wish to learn more about these things. So the next big event we do is supposed to be our Bubble Fun Festival, which is intended to take place every year on Saturday, August 12th, which is International Youth Day. But instead of a Bubble Fun Festival this year, because it seems that our partners at PodNet aren't quite ready for that just yet, UnityNet International will be doing an interview with Dr. Paul Olivier, a sustainable farming and waste management expert and biochar stove maker extraordinaire. This event is also intended to raise awareness of our globally coordinated events to establish the Youth Peace Gardens through the UnityNet Watershed Peace Gardens campaign, which is also intended to support a fundraiser. The fundraiser is intended to take place from Wednesday, August 9th to Saturday, August 19th, inclusive of the August 12th International Youth Day, which is when I will be doing my broadcast and interview with Dr. Olivier, who is located in central Vietnam in a little city called Dalat up in the mountains. Please also note that August 9th is International Day of Indigenous Peoples, and August 19th is World Humanitarian Day. And every day between these two dates is part of our UnityNet Community Unity Weeks. We'll be celebrating the diversity of humanity. The purpose of the events that we may be doing during our UnityNet Community Weeks will be to raise funds for our practical reconciliation community projects and initiatives, and to plant trees and establish community youth peace gardens in all of our local communities, UnityNet, and all of our partner networks, where we can celebrate our diversity globally together. The campaign for our fundraising is called the UnityNet Watershed Peace Gardens Campaign, which is being led by the members of the UnityNet Environment Network and their allies, working in partnership with the Global Partnership for Regenerative Development and any other UnityNet members. Our goal is to protect the ecological integrity of lakes, rivers, and watershed biodiversity and the hotspots around them, as well as bioregional eco-integrity using the UnityNet system of working with local Indigenous peoples and their allies. During this campaign, we'd like to begin to establish rings and networks of youth peace gardens around all of our sacred waters and all of our sacred ecoregions, planted by young people and their families of the regions that need ecological protection from the degenerative development projects like urban and industrial developments, mining, and other such activities that can contaminate the waters or damage the ecological integrity of our bioregions. We also like to establish local teams of pollinator and watershed ambassadors through the UnityNet RDG clubs at local schools and in all local communities of these sacred watersheds and bioregions, as well as begin demonstrating regenerative living and lifestyles that help to restore and regenerate ecosystems and various local watershed integrity as people live their day-to-day lives. So you'll find again details of this event and some links to join the campaign in our Zoom chat window. Please also note that I will in fact be traveling to Dalat, Vietnam in early August to meet with, discuss, and work out some plans to help Dr. Olivier develop the UnityNet Community Wall Farm, a Wheel of Life farm, and farm school model. We'll also do an event on August 12th, International Youth Day, and interview Dr. Olivier so that everyone in our network can become more familiar with his waste management and value-added systems of production. Unfortunately, this year, we will not be able to do any kind of tree planting ceremony in Asia on August 12th, and will not be able to establish our first youth peace garden here on the island of Taiwan, nor in Vietnam, as we hope that we may be able to do. As noted on Saturday, August 12th, I will be in Vietnam and will be hosting a hybrid in-person and virtual discussion related to the actions that we need to be taking in all of our local communities of UnityNet to achieve that responsible, productive, localized CCRE that LNOB, starting with those youth peace gardens, but eventually leading to the establishment of some community unity gardens, community unity hubs, and unity peace centers in all of our local communities of UnityNet. Unfortunately, the tree planting ceremony this year in Vietnam is a no-go because the owner of the 1,000-hectare forest on the coast of the country is not ready to do so and may not get involved. So let's begin to plan to do a twinning of our first youth peace gardens for next year in 2024, twinned with some others in various other countries around the world, whether existing or future, wherever we can think to establish some UnityNet community unity garden learning centers in order to begin to establish a circular, regenerative, climate-smart food production economy using the concepts of the Wheel of Life farms and others. So again, you'll find in the chat a little bit of information about International Youth Day, which of course takes place on August 12th. As well, you'll find our online event, the Community 2023 event, which has been published already, and that will be interviewing Dr. Olivier. Finally, we'll find a little bit of additional information about the UnityNet Watershed Peace Gardens campaign that we'll share in 2 parts, because apparently it is a little bit too long to post in the Zoom chat chunk. Also, you'll find in the chat a little bit about our UnityNet Sunlight Spectral 2024 event, which is one of the projects that we'd like to raise funding for, probably on an ongoing basis, where we start the fundraising during this time, during the August Community Unity Weeks. So thank you for joining us again on this Thursday Zoom session. If you're watching this on social media, on Facebook or YouTube, please also join our LinkedIn and WhatsApp groups. Help us to create a truly global network of educators, professionals, and active citizens who are helping to accelerate the transition to a localized, responsible, productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that seeks to leave no one behind. I will do what I can while I'm here in Taiwan and also while visiting Vietnam in a few weeks. But as I wrote to my colleague Madan just this morning, when I get back to Canada at the end of this year, we should probably have a sit-down meeting with Mary Ng, the Minister of International Trade, Export Promotions, Small Business, and Economic Development, and talk to her about the potential of the UnityNet Community Unity Gardens Network, along with the related productive Unity Eco Village Network, to act as a sort of private sector diplomacy tool for Canada and Canadian global goods and services and values by working with companies like Canadian Tire and other similar corporations who claim to be sustainable as a way to help open up the market for Canadian value-added products, including the PodNet and solar solutions, the climate-smart kitchens and the Unity Gardens and forests, which can be delivered through the UnityNet Community Unity Hubs, and shall each have a Canadian store attached to them as a front end. So in the chat, you'll find a little bit of information about Ms. Mary Ng, who is the MP for the community of Markham, along with a little information about Canadian Tire, who was recently named the most sustainable retailer in Canada. You'll also find it in the chat a bit of information about from the Canadian Tire Corporation, their approach to ESG. They have 3 sections that are important for our notice. That is their section about environment, responsible sourcing, and governance. So these are some of the things that I'll be paying attention to forward as we attempt to create partnerships with larger corporations and governments as well as the local communities. So thank you all for staying on for this opening. I didn't go through our presentation today. There are only a couple of members. Thank you, Lisa and Anise. I know you usually need to get off the calls fairly early, so I'm going to stop the share at this point and have a little open discussion about some of the themes of today's presentation. Well, not presentation so much, but what we were talking about originally was this idea, of course, of, oops, something went wrong here. Sorry. With regard to regenerative living, learning, lifestyles, how do we get this to happen? This is quite a process I think we have to undertake. First, to engage and develop the peaceful societies, I think, is one of the most essential criteria, and then creating, of course, the livelihoods and having all that merge together in a system that will allow ongoing stability and ongoing economic growth and prosperity for these communities, especially where they are most in need. So any thoughts So I'd like to also have a quick discussion with Marthe. We have not actually had a chance to talk, and I know Lisa has introduced us earlier, but only virtually on the WhatsApp chat. So we haven't actually had a chance to have any kind of discussions. I don't know, Marthe, if you have the ability to converse in English or not, or if you were using translators.
I do believe that's what's going on. She needs a translator. And not ahead of time, I didn't make that arrangement. So I could try to see what I could come up with in the next few minutes. But no, I mean, on my end, as far as popularizing what it is we're doing, we're at a very interesting place in terms of Earth's population. We've got just as many people past the age of 50 as we do those who are younger at the moment, although that's going to change. But what does change is the knowledge base. When all the growth and all the powers go from one generation to the next. Now, that brings up opportunities for us to do all kinds of things to inspire increase in knowledge, to make certain things more popular, and to prepare people for specific ideas, which that's what we're doing right now with UnityNet.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And as those news articles keep pouring in of the old guard, as we can call it, talking about climate disaster all the time, left and right, what we're going to be seeing is in these younger generations that will be taking over all of our media, all of our politics, all of our decision-making positions across the world. They'll be acting according to how they live, which is with this reality. So they'll be very, very quickly moving things forward. The biggest issue that we have right here is how the outgoing regimes are going to do what they can to try to, I don't know, control what they cannot control. And the
clinging to power.
Yeah, clinging to the power. And of course, a capitalist system based upon a product that's quickly getting out of their grasp, which is the oil, gas, and coal industries. We already know they won't stop digging, no matter how deep they have to go, because they've been blessed with the great illness of gold. And it is an illness, killing 35,000 children every single day. What nonsense. And all they're willing to do at this point is pay people to clean up after their mess. But when that bill comes due, well, guess what? They're already stepping back. Wait a minute. Because of that same illness of gold. So what I'm seeing is our getting started. Yes, we're going to have those challenges of dying regimes. But as soon as that starts to occur, we're looking at a very huge wave of change that's going to follow the paths that we're laying down right now. And so laying those paths and setting those structures so that others who take over after us will not be lost as to what they can do, but have that pathway that's already there that they can expound on. I already know for my part, I will not see the worst of climate change, but I do know I will see damage begin to turn the corner before I pass. And as far as I'm concerned, that's enough of a reward in many ways from what I'm doing. I'd like to be able to pay my rent, but that's a different story, which we're all facing here, that are helping put this thing together. But we're just one small part what really puts it together is the people who are engaging in what it is that we've proposed.
Yes.
And I think that as long as we can keep that information flowing through the difficulties that we're all going to be facing with these dying regimes, we can be there as a place for people to come and hang their hat and say, this is what's going to happen when.
Yeah.
So as more people,
Well, this is actually what we talked about early on as well, was we don't try to create something that sort of aligns with what's already happening in the mainstream. We build an alternative system, somewhere people can go when they realize all hope is lost with that current system, which is going in this direction. Here, there's these self-sufficient eco-villages. There's these places that are refuges where people can survive, and they're easy to replicate once we know how to do it. But it's that first step of creating those first proof of concept projects that is the most difficult, of course. And we need to identify those investors that are saying, yes,
well, and
we're on board with.
They've already started coming forward, but I mean, as with any really good projects, the first ones that show are the ones who are looking to capitalize and get what it is they want rather than what they need. But that we have to consider that a heavy compliment, because those kind of trolls are proof positive that what we have is getting attention, because they'll try to get in.
And there are a lot of people besides us doing the attention getting.
Yes. Very
actually the PodNet network is actually huge, and it's been around for a long time, before we came along. And I keep getting reminded by Richard Nelson, who he actually invented the solar roof building system 50 years ago.
Oh, by far.
So if you can think about it, that's been around for a long time, and he's built them many times, but they've all been demolished.
Well, it's like cars that run on hydrogen gas, or essentially water vapor. They were created over a century ago in the early years of motor vehicles. However, because they didn't fill the pockets of the present system, they went away. But that technology is still there. It's just the old system. Hey, they dug deep and hit it, and essentially made it so it's really difficult to get to. So we're having to come up with new methods of creating that energy. And of course, in my work, being out there in the front in certain ways, or at least in certain areas, I do get those groups coming to me all the time and saying, hey, look, we know you're onto something brand new. We've got something brand new that we would like to see how it works, or if it actually works, if we put it into larger production rather than these small tests that we've been running. So how about it? And of course, all I can say right now is, give me your name and your contact. And when we're at that point, we'll be giving you a call to find out what you're all about, because that call is going to go out once we get these groups organized and starting to spread on the ground. They'll be asking for it. Is there any other way? That's what they'll be saying. And that's when we'll have those opportunities for these groups to come in, at the very least in the beginning, test what they have. And this thing about finding new methods, as someone who's built programs all their lives, I can say the present system, not only does it suck, it's full of tons of holes, easily filled, if you can see the pattern that they take. And for those of us who aren't disturbed by the numbers, but look at the details, yeah, we can see those patterns. and what they make and what they don't make and how to fix them. So that's essentially what we're doing right now. Seeing those patterns, looking at the holes and saying, wait a minute, we have something that's going to be fixing that, something that's already happening here and here and here. Yeah. But that's part of what this whole thing is all about. The sharing of ideas, the sharing of issues, and discovering that others in other parts of the world, because of the tools that they're given, have ideas that they've worked that deal with those issues. Okay, share those ideas over here. That is one of the things we're looking at. Just by a medium like this, the ability to be able to share those ideas on a global scale without it being held by any outside interest for nefarious purposes, but the ability to have those ideas, those concepts, and those designs move freely. Because in digital technology, it's not about gold and silver. It's about concepts, ideas, and information. That's going to be the gold and the silver and the platinum of years moving forward.
Yeah. So it seems like we will not be hearing from Marte. Again, our discussion today is intended to be talking about how to ensure livelihood, security, and peace for all humans and all relations globally, leaving no one behind, starting now.
Yeah, I need that heads up when people are in that I have to get translators for. I want to put that out to get that done. We do have the birth of a translators page. We've got just short of 30 people on it. I'd like to pull in more, not just those that speak the old colonial languages, but ones that speak dialects of all kinds. And I don't care where they're from. So as far as that goes, just to get a few more on that page before we start going through what policies and protocols are. How a real translator behaves. Because there are good ones out there, there are bad ones out there. I had a guy a couple weeks ago who actually knew the language to a point. So what he did was he translated in on his telephone using translate software and then spoke it back, because apparently it had been years since he had spoke that language. And I'm like, nope, I could do that. And I don't, which is why I have translators. We want real-time translation. So that's going to be a part of that discussion. And part of it is just my experiences trying out these people one by one. Put it all together that way. And probably get some ideas from people who do it professionally. I'm sure I'll run into a couple. So, but yes, we're getting closer to that time where I am going to have to run to go and teach, because I have to take a train to get there. So
one thing I wanted to ask, I guess before we leave, I'm trying to find the page. There's Nigeria. I believe there's a gentleman that got in contact with me earlier. Do you know the gentleman from the Culture of Peace Foundation? His name is Farouk Akolisa from Nigeria.
Culture of Peace
Foundation. So I'm actually a member of his WhatsApp group that he created called the Culture of Peace Foundation. So he contacted me again today. He originally contacted me back in December 2022.
No, I actually
okay.
don't have any listing for that. I do have several people from
Okay.
Nigeria.
I
Right.
would like to set up a time. I would like to set up a time to have a discussion with him. He did, as I said, set up this group discussion for the Cultural Peace Foundation. He seems very excited about the possibilities of partnering with us. So through his foundation, he would like to work with us. He sent me the message today, just this afternoon. Let me just read a little bit of what he wrote, because I told him about the program that we're doing. He said, this is an interesting program of IGU, which of course is this program we have right now. I'd like us to establish a formal partnership with Cultural Peace Foundation and establish the best possible means of cooperation to people of various communities. Cooperation to benefit the people of various communities, as he wrote again. And he said, please create a chat group. Let's get started. Our vision is to build a large network of change makers in various communities who would spread the message of reconciliation and become peace ambassadors in their local communities towards sustainable development. Our Cultural Peace Foundation members in various African communities shall be groomed and trained across a range of careers to allow them to take up the mantle of leadership. One of our objectives is to promote peace through history, literature, and arts, and intercultural exchange. We believe that history and culture can be powerful tools in promoting understanding, empathy, and respect among different peoples and nations. By learning about the history and culture of others, people can gain a better understanding of their perspectives, values, and beliefs. This in turn can help reduce stereotypes, prejudices, and misunderstandings that often lead to conflicts and wars. We also intend to empower our members and volunteers through intercultural exchange programs, such as student exchange programs, cultural immersion programs, and language exchange programs, to facilitate the exchange of ideas, perspectives, and experiences between different cultures. Such programs can also promote cultural awareness and sensitivity and help build bridges between different communities. Furthermore, the study of history can provide insight into past conflicts and their resolution, and can help people learn from past mistakes and avoid future conflicts. I'm having this discussion with a friend who teaches history in one of the British universities and has interests to cooperate. These opportunities will also expose young people to the philosophy of diplomacy, conflict resolution, and international relations, and can also help people understand how to promote peaceful relationships between nations and peoples. Ideally, promoting peace through history and intercultural exchange has the tendency to foster greater understanding, empathy, and respect among different cultures and communities. He actually goes on and writes quite a bit more after that as well. But that was kind of his introduction to me just today on his programs. And he would really like to partner with us if possible to move forward. So I want to learn more about.
Yeah, my thought, make the page and explore.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to sit there and talk to him about what we're
So if
doing.
we could have a conversation. The other thing is, I know you have to get off in a second, is I do have another message from Mitch Gold, and I kind of realize what he's been trying to do. So Mitch, it seems, would like to transform the UN in one particular way. What he's been trying to do is to create a United Nations that isn't a peacekeeping organization. They're a peacemaking organization. That is the shift he wants to create within the philosophy of the UN. And so I think that is where I think there could be an entry point for us to also have this conversation with this other gentleman.
Well, in truth, that already exists through certain organizations that deal in gathering information. I mean, with I'm not talking about heritage sites that UNESCO maintains, because all those they're small economies on their own, where they make partnerships of all the people around the communities in specific professions and actually change the economy of that community by showing them how cultural and heritage preservation can do that for them. But with what is being done by the small people on the ground, we're the ones who bring those big change programs in. And the partners that we make of the public are what secure, protect, and expand them. What we're doing right now is another version of that same thing. It's just we've got so many disciplines involved that all have the same idea. You can call that a murmur effect if you like, but what it really comes down to is, yeah, we've already become that society of change. If he wants to, he can call us the warriors of the rainbow, because that's based on that prophecy that exists in so many different cultures as to different people from different walks of life coming together to unify what goes on the planet. And to basically bring everybody back to the wisdom of the ancients, and how ancient doesn't mean antiquated. Most definitely it does not. That the old statement about us not learning from history is absolutely 100% true, because it's based on human behavior, and human behavior that doesn't stay informed. Because with every generational turnover, there is a loss of information. And that's a shame, because it means those are mistakes that we are doomed to repeat and repeat again. So it's more than
education is so important.
Definitely, but not just the education itself, but the holding and the carrying of good ideas from whenever. It doesn't matter. I mean, you know, the person who invented bread did a really great thing at that time, and we deal with it every day. We just take it for advantage because, hey, you can get bread anywhere. That's the same thing with culture. It gets dismissed by many people because it's always there. Make it disappear, see what happens. Without culture,
things
we're
fall
at
apart
throats very quickly. Very quickly. We
as
kill
we've
each other
seen so many times.
so many times, and then talk to the powers that be, and they get dismissive. Well, what good is a music degree? Well, to tell you the truth, go a day without hearing music. See if you can.
Yeah.
Question answer.
Have you ever been to an opera? Have you ever been to a symphony orchestra? Have you ever been to any of these cultural events? I mean, they all have.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, have you ever listened to a little ragtime band? Or have you been to a local Mexican restaurant and had their troubadours come and sing to you? Boom, boom, boom. With the bass guitar, the guy who carries it in his lap, you know, and all of that. These are things that, yes, they entertain, they change moods, they change lives, and without them, we are changed for the worse. Period.
And I can tell you right now, they are some of the most memorable parts of our lives. For sure.
They're always there somewhere in the background of some great story. But I do have to go. I got a couple things to do before I pack up and get out the door. And if I'm not out the door by 9:20, there's going to be a bit of a rush somewhere. So, which I like avoiding.
All right. Well, I think we had a good conversation. We didn't have a lot of people on today. Thank you, Marthe. Toy,
Toe,
for being
and that's the
on
name she
with
likes.
us. Toy. So we are definitely moving forward. I just to let you know, I do have my tickets booked for Vietnam. That is fait accompli with the hotel booked as well. We're just now waiting our travels. We'll be spending 8 days in total there. We have no particular schedule at this point except for the 12th. So the days leading up to that will be to prepare for that. And the days following maybe a little bit of sightseeing or something in the mountains, because I've been told it's a really, really beautiful place.
Yeah. No, they will insist. They will insist. Okay, I'm gonna let you go.
All right. Thank you very much, Lisa Denise and Marthe. And until next week.